Simon, a lot going on with Starwood, new brands and whatnot, but a lot of signings. You're up year on year with signings. Let's use the word signings instead of pipeline, because that's really showing how you're growing, isn't it?
When you and I saw each other in Berlin in early March, that was right at the beginning of the year, and it felt like we were off to a good start. Now here we are at the beginning of June, and we've got a full 5 months under our belt. And our signings are up meaningfully over the same time last year. So any concerns about global slowdown in macroeconomic growth, frankly, have not hit our signings activity. What I find most reassuring or most exciting is that the growth in signings is across the world, and it's not just in one place or one brand. So one of the things that I like to focus on at all times is to make sure that we've got all 9 brands, now 10 with the Tribute portfolio. We've got a good mix of signings across all 10 of our brand offerings. We've got a good mix of signings across all geographies. And obviously from quarter to quarter we'll have a little bit of an increase here, a little bit of a decrease there. But for the most part, the mix of signings is consistent with last year. The mix across geographies is consistent with last year. So what I like about that is it's almost like your personal stock portfolio. We've got a good balance, a good portfolio of growth. And candidly, looking out for the rest of the year, so far so good. It's so good. It feels pretty good.
Obviously, the global hotel market's been significantly strong. A lot of hotel sales, and seems to be outpacing commercial in quite a few cities from a demand standpoint. You must get a lot of owners coming to you saying, "Simon, I want to buy a hotel somewhere. I mean, how do I do that?" Are you getting a lot more of that now, as opposed to just new developments?
We do, and one of the things that is one of the best intellectual questions, I think, that when we get an owner who says, "I'm thinking of buying this hotel," let's just call it a full service hotel, what would you do to brand it within your system? So we can look at a hotel now and we can say, well, we could position it this way as a Sheraton, we could position it this way as a Westin. As a Le Méridien, we would take a different perspective. If you wanted to move it up, we might be able to look at it as a Luxury Collection or a St. Regis or a W. Or if you wanted to have it in the sort of boutique, full service level, we could look at it as a Tribute. So whenever we get those opportunities, frankly, to have that conversation, and you've been to our design center in both New York and Stamford, having an owner or a developer come in and say, here's an asset, what could Starwood do with it from a positioning standpoint? When you can lay out 5 or 6 brands and say, we can pull this lever, flip this switch, and position it in a certain way, that's a great conversation to have.
And that's happening more and more around the world now, I imagine.
No, it is. I mean, I think that obviously the markets are very strong. Demand is still pretty good. Supply is very much under control. I think that what we're seeing is an awful lot of capital moving cross-border, and I think that China is a good place to look at that. If you look at the evolution, if you will, of our involvement with China, you start in 1984 with the opening of the Sheraton in Beijing. That was sort of okay, we introduced a US brand or an international brand into China. That now you grow to 135 hotels in China. So that part of our business is very well established. Then you have Chinese consumers, Chinese guests coming into the middle class. And I took the elevator down here at the W at Times Square. It was me and a group of 11 Chinese tourists visiting New York. Now, would you have seen that in as much volume as we have today 5 years ago? Absolutely not. One of the things that we're finding is that our brand presence in China and our SPG presence in China means that when the Chinese travelers travel, they seek out brands and loyalty programs where they have familiarity. So that's sort of phase 2 of our China involvement. Phase 3 is Chinese outbound capital, and we saw it with the Shanshan Group buying the Sheraton on the Park. You're beginning to see a lot more institutional Chinese capital moving around the world. So anytime, back to your original question, anytime you have a quality asset that's available, you're going to see Chinese institutional investors looking at it. You're going to see high net worth or sovereign wealth money coming out of the Middle East. And then you're going to have a mix of other investors depending upon what part of the world you're in. So it's a good time for transaction activity in the hotel sector.
And favourite question towards the end, I'm not going to ask you about your 3 favourite or hot brands going forward. 3 hot cities to watch out for the rest of this year and into next year.
You know, I think it's really hard. You ask a question like that, it's really hard to answer that, because I think that each city, every city and every destination has sort of, you know, a unique angle or a unique opportunity. I think that we're here in New York. So if we were to talk about New York, I think New York continues to be a really, really strong market. I think that the markets that are most interesting or most exciting to me in the next couple of months, frankly, are those European markets where US travelers either have been frequent visitors or currently are. Because I think when you look at the shift in the US dollar versus the euro, being able to go to Florence or to Rome or to Paris or to London, less so London, but certainly the euro-dominated markets, Europe's on sale from a cost standpoint. I think you're going to see an awful lot of the strong European markets. Madrid would be another one, where you're going to see people saying, you know what, we've been really meaning to go to Europe. This is a good summer to do it. So I think you're going to see a fair amount of short-term bookings pick up for the European capitals and the European destinations.